Social Relations 1 by Cora-Leigh of Liberty University for the course Psych 512, Group 4. This week's PowerPoint will outline some of the topics discussed in this week's reading, the first of which being the need to belong, the second being attraction and close relationships, the third being social exchange theory and what happens when social exchange rules are violated, and the fourth being altruism. We are all born with the need to belong, to be social, and to be around others. Belonging positively affects self-esteem and self-worth. Those who have strong friendships and strong familial ties generally have more positive self-esteem and have a greater satisfaction in life. In addition to the need to belong, there is also the need for affiliation, which is defined as the desire to establish and maintain a network of rewarding relationships. Each person is motivated to find their optimum balance of social contact, which differs from person to person. As previously stated, when individuals are not connected with others, or they feel ostracized, rejected, or neglected by others, they experience social distress, which can lead to loneliness or the feeling of deprivation about social relations. The first step to forming a social relationship is affiliation. However, we are all drawn to certain people more than others, which is called attraction. This slide lists some of the factors of initial attraction. Proximity is how close individuals are to one another. While it may be stated that we do a significant amount of distant communication by texting or email, proximity is still important. This can be seen by proximity being listed as a priority on many internet and app-based dating portals. The mere exposure effect is the phenomenon where the more often that one is exposed to someone or something, the more positively they evaluate that stimulus. Think of a school or an office crush. The feeling of attraction is intensified when one has many interactions with that person or sees them frequently. Reciprocity is defined loosely as the attraction that is built when another person expresses that they like us. Now, we have all heard the saying that opposites attract, but researchers are finding that less and less true. People are generally attracted to those who are similar to themselves. Either they have similar interests, have similar physical attractiveness levels, or are of a similar background. The hard-to-get effect comes into play when we find highly selective people more attractive than those who are more readily available or willing to be less selective. Close relationships are built over time. We can categorize these in different ways. Probably the most obvious way to categorize close relationships is intimate versus non-intimate relationships. Intimate relationships have certain feelings of attachment, affection, and love towards another. They also are characterized by the fulfillment of psychological needs and interdependence between partners. Then we can break down relationships even further into exchange and communal relationships. Exchange relationships are kind of like a transaction. This is where both participants expect and desire strict and often immediate reciprocity in their interactions. So it's more tit for tat. Communal relationships are defined where participants expect and desire mutual responsiveness to each other's needs. So while they may not be getting an immediate reciprocity, they know that they will at some point whenever they are in need of that reciprocity. So the last slide touched on exchange relationships, and I'd like to expound upon that a little bit with the social exchange theory. This is the theory that social interactions are much like an economic interaction, where each individual weighs the costs and the benefits or rewards associated with that interaction, relationship, whatever. And they strive to maximize these rewards and minimize the costs in these interactions or relationships. There's also the equity theory, which is the theory that most individuals are satisfied with their relationship when the ratio between the benefits and the contributions is similar for both partners. So this is essentially saying people feel better in a relationship when they feel like they are getting what they're putting into the relationship. Trouble arises, however, whenever they feel like the other person is getting their way a significant amount of the time or more than them, or that they are giving much more than they're getting in return. So we talked a little bit about social exchange theory, and we know that from previous readings that as humans, we develop rules and norms associated with a context or an individual relationship, things of that nature. So what are some of the ways that people might perceive these rules to be violated, and how does that affect the individual? So whenever someone is rejected, that can lead to anger, interpersonal rejection, but they may also become angry or emotional if they feel that a breach in trust has occurred. Additionally, individuals feel entitled to a certain amount of respect and then can become upset when they feel that they're disrespected or not being given the level of respect that they believe that they deserve, or if they feel that they've been treated unfairly. Additionally, individuals might feel angry or discontent whenever a social interaction negatively affects their self-esteem or how they perceive themselves to be. So we talked a little bit about social exchange theory and how that's a very transactional way to view relationships that is very tit for tat. Now let's talk about altruism. It's a little bit different. It's the act of an individual giving or helping another person with no perceivable or expected gain. And this can often occur with a cost or at the risk of the individual. Broken down some of the different definitions or maybe reasons why one would do altruistic acts. One would be reciprocal altruism, which is essentially saying that they will do something that might cause an immediate cost or risk because they feel that they're going to be more likely to receive help from the other person in return at a later date. So it's kind of looking at the long game. Hand in hand with that is indirect reciprocity. That's when somebody does an altruistic behavior, but because they feel that they're going to be more likely to get help from someone else in return. Social strategies that have been proven to be successful in daily life can eventually become intuitive. That is, we do them without even thinking about what our reasoning is behind it. Some of this intuitive behavior formation might not necessarily be something that an individual has personally found successful in a social situation, but it could be an effect of a social role that's assigned based on gender, or occupation, profession, those types of things. Because over time, women have been accepted to behave in a more communal and therefore less selfish manner, they're more likely to experience intuitive altruism because society has groomed them to believe that that's their role, so they're likely to do it without even thinking about it. Following this week's readings, I had a couple of questions that I wanted to pose for discussion. In Luke chapter 6, verse 35, it states, "But love your enemies, and do good, and lend, expecting nothing in return, and your reward will be great. And you will be the sons of the Most High, for he is kind to the ungrateful and to the evil." In this verse, God has called us to be good to one another while expecting nothing in return. How does one appropriate this calling with the social exchange theory when this called upon altruistic behavior may negatively affect you or the individual? Another question that I had, we've all seen records of someone's altruistic, voluntarily, or seemingly selfless acts on social media. And I'm speaking specifically on the person themselves posting about their altruistic acts, not another person celebrating the voluntarism of others. Is altruistic behavior in this case truly altruistic if it's done for reputation or social popularity or recognition?